to say, you, however, seem to think you know me better than I do myself. He paused, his eyes flashing with indignation. You believe me to be one who delights in war, but that's not entirely true. My prowess is unmatched, and I've proven it time and again on the battlefield. His words were laced with a mix of hurt and pride, as if he felt misunderstood by his friend. He continued, perhaps you don't know me as well as you think you do, like one who swims in a lake without knowing its depths. His voice tripped with sarcasm, but beneath the surface a deep-seated pain simmered. The air was charged with tension as Bema's words hung in the balance. Vasudeva had unknowingly struck a nerve, and now the consequences of his actions were unfolding before him like a stormy sea. Who else could speak to me in such unbecoming words? Bema growled, his voice rising like a challenge. Bema's anger was palpable, and it seemed as if he would burst forth at any moment, unleashing the full fury of his wrath upon Vasudeva. But instead he chose to harness that energy, channeling it into a display of his unmatched prowess. "Behold, O Krishna," he said, his voice now laced with awe-inspiring confidence, "the firmament and the earth, immovable and infinite, are the refuge of countless creatures. If they were to collide, like two hills, I alone could keep them apart, along with all their mobile and immobile objects." As Bema spoke, his massive arms, flexed like masses ready to strike, his joints seemed to ripple beneath his skin, a testament to the incredible strength that lay within him. "I find no one who can escape my grasp once they've entered it," he declared, his voice dripping with conviction. The air was thick with anticipation as Bema continued to paint a picture of his invincibility. He spoke of vanquishing kings and bringing them under subjection, of trampling the Kshatriyas like ants beneath his feet. "It's not known to you, Udyoga," he said, his voice growing more intense, "the true extent of my prowess, which is like the fierce energy of the midday sun." As Bema spoke, Vasudeva listened with a mixture of awe and trepidation. He had unknowingly unleashed a storm, and now it seemed as if the Holy One's words hung in the air like a gentle breeze on a summer day. The son of Pandu, Bema, stood before him, his eyes fixed intently on the revered figure. The Holy One began to speak, his voice low and soothing to Bema. "It was only out of affection that I spoke to you as I did," he said, his words dripping with sincerity. "I wanted to guide your thoughts, not to reproach you or flout my learning. I know your magnanimity, your strength, and the great deeds you have accomplished. My intention was not to criticize you." Bema's eyes widened slightly as he listened to the Holy One's words. He felt a sense of relief wash over him, knowing that his actions had been guided by good intentions. 1,000 times greater will be the benefit you bring to the Pandava cause than what you think you can achieve. The Holy One continued, "You and your kinsmen are exactly as they should be, noble souls, born into a great family, respected by all the kings of the earth." The Holy One's words were like a gentle stream flowing smoothly over the stones of Bema's doubts. He spoke of how even learned men can err in their judgments, and how human actions are often shrouded in uncertainty. "The consequences of our deeds can be opposite to what we intend," he said. "Even well-planned actions can be thwarted by Providence, but it is through the combination of destiny and exertion that we achieve our goals." Bema listened intently, his mind clearing as the Holy One's words washed over him. He felt a sense of calm settled within him, knowing that he was not alone in this great endeavor. The purpose of life is to act, knowing that both destiny and exertion will guide us. The Holy One said, "He who acts with this understanding is never pained by failure or delighted by success." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the scene, the Holy One's words came to an end. Bema felt a sense of gratitude towards him, knowing that he had been guided and reassured. "Tomorrow I will go to Dhritarashtra's presence," the Holy One said. "I will strive to make peace without sacrificing your interests. If the Kauravas agree to peace, then all parties will reap great benefits. But if they refuse, then a formidable war is certain." The weight of responsibility fell upon Bema's shoulders as he listened to the Holy One's words. He knew that the burden would be shared by him and his brother Arjuna with other warriors. Following their lead, "I will certainly drive Vivatsa's chariot in battle," the Holy One said, "for it is Dhananjaya's wish, and not mine alone, that I desire to fight us." The Holy One finished speaking. The sun was setting over the tranquil landscape as Arjuna stood before Krishna, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions. The weight of their impending war against the Kauravas hung heavy on his shoulders, and he sought guidance from the wise and just Lord Janardana. "Arjuna," began Yudhishthira, "has already spoken what needs to be said, But, O chastiser of foes, hearing your words, it seems to me that you do not believe peace can be easily obtained either, because of Dhritarashtra's covetousness, or our present weakness. Krishna's expression, remain calm and thoughtful as Arjuna. Continue, you think human prowess alone is fruitless, and that without putting forth one's prowess, purposes cannot be achieved. I understand what you have said, but perhaps it may not always be true. Krishna listened attentively to Arjuna's words, his eyes gazing into the distance, as if searching for a solution. It is true, he replied. Peace seems impossible in consequence of our distressful condition. Yet, they are still acting against us without reaping the fruits of their acts. He paused, collecting his thoughts before speaking again. O Krishna, strive thou to bring about peace with the foe. Arjuna implored, his voice filled with a deep longing for an end to the suffering that had befallen them. You are the foremost of all friends of both the Pandavas and the Kurus, even as Prajapati is of both the gods and the Asuras accomplished though. Therefore that which is for the good of both the Kurus and the Pandavas. Krishna's expression turned grave, and he replied, it shall be, although of mighty arms, what you, O Pandavas, sayest. I will strive to bring about that which would be beneficial to both the Pandavas and the Kurus. He paused, his eyes clouding over as if reflecting on the complexities of human affairs between the two kinds of acts, war and peace. Krishna continued, the latter is perhaps within my power. Behold, the soil is moistened and divested of weeds by human exertion, but without rain, O son of Kantai, crops never yield. He spoke of the cooperation between providential and human expedients, and how wise men of old had said that human affairs were set in motion by both. Krishna's words painted a vivid picture of the intricate web of fate that bound them all. The wicked soul Duryodhana acteth defying both virtue and the world. He said, his voice heavy with sorrow, nor doth he feel any regret in consequence of his acting in that way. He spoke of Sekani's counsel and Karna's influence, how they fed Duryodhana. The sun was setting over the camp of the Pandavas, casting a warm orange glow over the bustling tents. Nakula, one of the 5 brothers, stood before Krishna, his eyes filled with a mix of emotions, concern, doubt, and determination. Much has been said, O Madhava. Nakula began, his voice steady but laced with anxiety. King Yudhishthira, the just ruler, has shared his thoughts on our situation. Fog Night too has spoken her mind. Krishna listened attentively as Nakula continued, his words spilling out like a river in full flow. As for me, O hero, I have given much thought to this matter. You have repeatedly expressed your opinion, and I respect that, but I must share my own thoughts with you. Nakula took a deep breath, collecting his thoughts before speaking again. In times of war, one cannot stick to the same plan forever, he said, his eyes locked onto Krishna's. The situation changes, and so must our approach. When we were living in the woods, hiding from our enemies, our hearts were set on one course. But now that concealment is no longer necessary, our wishes have changed. Nakula paused, surveying the faces of his brothers gathered around him. Krishna, he said, turning back to the god, while we wandered in the woods, our desire for the kingdom was not as strong as it is now. But with your grace, O Janardana, an army of 7 Akshathanas has been assembled. Beholding these mighty warriors standing equipped and ready for battle, what man would not be filled with fear? Nakula's voice rose, his words pouring out like a torrent thus: we must go into the midst of our enemies, armed with both kindness and threats. He said, his eyes burning with determination. Speak first words of gentle persuasion, O Krishna, and then those that will bring fear to the wicked. Sayodhana. Nakula's gaze swept across the faces of his brothers, his voice filled with conviction. A mortal man can stand against us in battle. He declared, his words echoing through the camp. Yudhishthira, Emisna, Vivetsa, Sahadeva, myself, and you, O Kesava, we are invincible. Virata, with his sons, Drupada, with his allies, Trishadyam, the ruler of Kasai, Trishaktu, and Satyakai, all of us together will be a force to reckon with. Nakula's voice dropped to a whisper, but his words carried weight. Vidura, Bhishma, Drona, and Valika will understand you when you speak, he said, turning back to Krishna. They will urge Dhritarashtra, and the sun beat down upon the assembly gathered in the great hall. Its warmth, a stark contrast to the icy fury that had been building within the hearts of the Pandavas. Always Sahadeva, his eyes blazing with determination, stood before them and spoke with conviction. What has been said by our king is indeed eternal virtue, he declared. But we must act in such a way that war becomes inevitable, even if the Kauravas express their desire for peace. We must provoke them into battle. Krishna, the wise and powerful leader of the Dasarath, Phaon listened intently to Sahadevas words. He knew that the princess of Panchala, who had been brought before the assembly a state of distress, could not be ignored. The memory of her plight still lingered in his mind like an open wound. How could he appease the wrath of the Pandavas without exacting vengeance on Duryodhana? The very embodiment of their sufferings, Sahadevas' words struck a chord within Krishna, and he knew that the time for war had come. He nodded in agreement, his eyes never leaving the faces of those gathered before him. But it was Satyaki the heroic, son of Madrai, who gave voice to the collective rage that had been building within them all. The high-souled Sahadeva has spoken the truth. He declared, his words dripping with conviction. My own rage towards Duryodhana can only be appeased by his death. As Satyaki spoke, a leonine roar erupted from the assembly, its thunderous sound echoing through the halls. Like a clarion call to battle, the warriors present began to applaud, their voices rising in a crescendo of approval and admiration for Satyaki's words. Excellent, excellent. They chanted, their faces set with determination. Krishna watched as the assembly erupted into a frenzy of excitement and anticipation. He saw the fire of war burning brightly within them all, and he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The Pandavas, all these, had made up their minds. They would not rest until Duryodhana was brought to justice. As the assembly continued to rage like a tempest, Krishna stood tall, his eyes scanning the faces of those gathered before him. He saw the annealing resolve etched upon every brow, and he knew that the fate of the Pandavas hung precariously in the balance. The die had been cast. War was now inevitable. In this moment, as the assembly's fervor reached a fever pitch, Krishna felt the weight of his responsibility settle heavily upon him. He knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but he also knew that it was a path. He could not avoid. The fate of the Pandavas, and indeed the entire kingdom, hung precariously in the balance. In the midst of a heated discussion about peace and war, came Drupada's daughter Krishna. Her long black tresses, a testament to her sorrow, sat beside Lord Krishna. She gazed at Bhimesna, who had declared his desire for peace, and her eyes welled up with tears. So, slayer of Matthew, she said, her voice trembling, you know the deceitful means by which the son of Dhritarashtra and his counselors stole our happiness from us. You also know the message that was sent to Sanjay through him, a message that asked for only 5 villages in exchange for peace. Her words dripped with anguish as she recounted the events. Krishna's eyes pleaded with Lord Krishna, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. If Sayadhana desires to make peace without surrendering the kingdom, there is no need for us to go. There we Pandavas and our allies can withstand his fierce host, but if they refuse to listen, it would be wrong of you to show them mercy. Her words were laced with a sense of desperation. As she spoke, her tears flowed freely, and her voice grew hoarse. She reminded Lord Krishna that she was the daughter of King Drupada, the sister of Trishadyama, his dear friend, and the queen of Panda's sons, who were mighty Kar warriors. Her 5 sons, of many among them, were morally bound to Lord Krishna. Krishna's words became a litany of sorrow as she recounted her treatment at the hands of Dasasana in the assembly hall. I was seized by the hair, dragged into the assembly, and insulted before my husbands and you, O Krishna. I called upon you, saying, save me. But when the Pandavas sat silent without giving way to wrath, I felt abandoned. Her voice cracked under the weight of her memories as she spoke. Her body began to shake with convulsive sobs, and tears gushed down her cheeks like liquid fire. Lord Krishna comforted her, saying that soon the ladies of Bharata's race would weep as she did their kinsmen and friends slain in battle. He vowed to accomplish all this, and that the sons of Dhritarashtra would lie down on the earth if they refused to listen. Krishna's tears slowed, and her body relaxed as Lord Krishna spoke. She looked up at him with eyes that shone like lotus leaves, and he swore to her that soon she would see her husbands victorious, their enemies slain, and prosperity crowning them. The sun had just risen over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the landscape. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and the gentle chirping of birds. It was a peaceful morning, one that seemed to whisper promises of a brighter future. In the midst of this serenity, Arjuna stood before Lord Krishna, his eyes filled with a deep sense of longing. You are now, O Kesava, he said, his voice trembling with emotion, the best friend of all the Kurus related to both parties. You are the dear friend of both. It behooves you to bring about peace between the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra. Krishna's eyes sparkled with understanding as he replied, yes, I will go to King Dhritarashtra. desirous of accomplishing what is consistent with righteousness, what may be beneficial to us, and what also is for the good of the cuirass. With these words, Krishna set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of Historias. He prepared to depart. Krishna bathed and purified himself, performing the customary acts and rites of the morning. He worshipped both the sun and fire and touched the tail of a bull reverently, bowing to the Brahmanas. The atmosphere was filled with an air of reverence as Krishna donned his ornaments and ornaments ready to face whatever lay ahead. The car that would carry him on this mission was no ordinary vehicle. It shone like the fire that shows itself at the time of universal dissolution, its wheels resembling the sun and moon in their luster. The emblazonments of moons, fishes, animals, and birds adorned its sides, while garlands of diverse flowers and pearls of various kinds sparkled around it as Krishna mounted his chariot. The earth seemed to tremble with anticipation. The sky cleared and auspicious winds began to blow around, carrying with them the sweet scent of prosperity. Cranes, peacocks, and swans followed in his wake, their cries echoing through the air like good omens. Krishna's attendants yoked his car to the magnificent steeds Savya, Sugriva, Mahapushpa, and Valahika, who had been bathed and attired in beautiful harness. The chariot itself was a marvel of craftsmanship, its flagstaff bearing beautiful pennons that fluttered in the breezes. Krishna set out for the residence of the cuirass. He was accompanied by his closest friends and oldies, Yudhishthira, Emma, Arjuna, and the twin sons of Madrai followed him along with other Pandavas, including Chaitanya, Prashteta, Drupada, and Virata. The illustrious king Yudhishthira approached Krishna as he rode by his eyes. As the sun rose over the horizon, Devakai's son Krishna set out on a grand journey to Hastinapura, his mighty arms at the ready. He was accompanied by 10 formidable chariot warriors, each capable of vanquishing enemy heroes. Thousands of foot soldiers and horsemen marched alongside him, their armor glinting in the morning light. Attendants numbering hundreds brought provisions, aplenty, ensuring that Krishna's entourage was well stocked for the long journey ahead. As they departed, a sense of awe washed over the land. The skies grew dark, despite not a cloud being visible, and thunder boomed forth with flashes of lightning illuminating the sky. Fleecy clouds rained down incessantly in their wake, as if following Krishna's chariot like devoted attendants. The great rivers of the land, including the mighty Indus, seemed to defy their natural course, flowing eastward instead of westward. The very fabric of reality appeared to be turned upside down. Fires blazed up everywhere, casting a golden glow over the landscape as the earth trembled beneath Krishna's feet. Wells and water vessels overflowed, spilling their contents onto the parched ground. A darkness so profound enveloped the land that even the cardinal points of the horizon were obscured by a thick veil of dust. Loud roars echoed through the skies, but none could see from whence they came. Yet in the midst of this chaos, a strange phenomenon occurred as Krishna's chariot traversed certain regions. Delicious breezes wafted forth, carrying with them the sweet scent of lotus flowers and fragrant blooms. The road itself transformed into a veritable paradise free from thorns and prickly grass. Women emerged from their homes to strew wildflowers at Krishna's feet, while Brahmanas by the thousands hailed him as a god, offering him dishes of curds, ghee, honey, and precious gifts. As Krishna continued on his journey, he came upon a spot called Salavavana, a land of plenty, where every kind of crop grew in abundance. The air was filled with the sweet hum of bees, and picturesque villages abounded, each one a testament to the beauty of the world. The citizens of Lopaplavia, drawn by the fame of Krishna, came out in mass to behold him, their hearts filled with wonder. Upon arriving at Vrikasthala, the sun itself seemed to redden the sky as Krishna alighted from his chariot. He performed the customary purificatory rites, then ordered Daruka to unharness the steeds and tend them according to ancient equinacience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Krishna settled in for the night. His attendants busily preparing a temporary abode and a feast fit for the gods. The Brahmanas of the village, men of noble descent and high character, approached Krishna with blessings and auspicious speeches. They offered. As the sun beat down on Hastinapura, King Dhritarashtra stood in his chambers, his hair standing erect with excitement. He had just received news from his spies that Krishna, the slayer of Madhu, was making his way to their city. The king's eye shone with a mixture of curiosity and trepidation as he addressed his advisors. Vishma, Drona, Sanjaya, and Vidura, noble sages, Dhritarashtra, said, "We have heard a most extraordinary tale. People from all walks of life are speaking of it in hushed tones. Men, women, and children alike, some speak with reverence, while others gather in groups to discuss the news. It seems that Krishna, the Desarha, prince of great prowess, is coming to our city in the name of the Pandavas." The king's voice trembled slightly as he continued, "We must honor him, for he is the lord of all creatures, and the very embodiment of virtue. His presence is said to bring prosperity, while his displeasure can only lead to suffering." Bhishma and the other advisors nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting a deep respect for Krishna's abilities. They applauded Dhritarashtra's words, urging him to make arrangements for the prince's reception without delay. Duryodhana, ever eager to please, took charge of organizing the festivities. He ordered that pavilions be erected along the roads leading into the city, each one a marvel of opulence and grandeur. The pavilions were designed to delight Krishna's senses. They shone with gems of every color, their walls adorned with intricate carvings and precious fabrics. Duryodhana sent for the finest seats, beautiful girls, perfumes, ornaments, fine robes, and exotic delicacies. He even took special care to construct the magnificent pavilion at Vrikasthalad, filled with the rarest gems and most exquisite treasures. As the preparations neared completion, Dhritarashtra summoned Duryodhana to inform him of the arrangements. The young prince beamed with pride, convinced that his efforts would win Krishna's favor, but little did they know Krishna was not one to be swayed by grand gestures or material wealth. He arrived at Hastinapura without so much as glancing at the elaborate pavilions or the treasures on display. As he walked through the city, Krishna seemed lost in thought, his eyes fixed on some distant horizon. His presence was a reminder that true greatness lies not in external trappings of power and wealth, but in the depths of one's own heart. The sun was setting over Hastinapura, casting a warm orange glow over the bustling streets. Dhritarashtra, the blind king, sat on his throne surrounded by his advisors and courtiers. His eyes, the sightless, shone with excitement as he turned to Vidura, his trusted counselor. "Vidura, my dear friend Dhritarashtra," said his voice filled with anticipation, "I have news from the south. Janardana, that illustrious of Desarha's race, has set out from Upplavia and will arrive here tomorrow. He is a leader among the Avhukas, renowned for his great energy and might. His wisdom is revered by all, even as Vraspati's is by the Adityas, Vasist, and Rudras." As Dhritarashtra spoke, his mind wandered to the grand reception he had planned for Krishna. He would offer him worship in Vidura's presence, and then lavish gifts upon him. "I will give him 16 golden chariots, each drawn by 4 majestic steeds of uniform color," he declared, "and 8 elephants, with their trunks dripping with temporal juice, capable of smiting hostile ranks. Each elephant will be accompanied by 8 human attendants." Dhritarashtra's enthusiasm grew as he listed the gifts he would give Krishna: a century of golden hind, maid servants, all virgins, and an equal number of male servants. 18,000 woolen blankets, soft to the touch, would also be his gift, and from the hillmen 1,000 deer skins brought from China, as well as other treasures worthy of Kiseva. As he finished speaking, Dhritarashtra's sons and grandsons gathered around him, eager to hear about their role in the reception. "My sons and grandsons, save Duryodhana," Dhritarashtra said, "will ride out on their chariots, well adorned, to receive Janardana, and thousands of dancing girls will follow deck and fiery to welcome the illustrious slayer of Mata." The king's eyes sparkled with excitement as he instructed his courtiers to prepare for the arrival of Krishna. "Let the road be well watered, and its dust removed," he said, "and let Dasasana's abode, which is better than Duryodhana's, be cleansed and adorned without delay. Is there that all my wealth, as also Duryodhana's, are deposited." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting Hastinapura in a soft twilight glow, Dhritarashtra rose from his throne, his heart filled with devotion for the one who was about to arrive. "Let all that Shin of the Vrishna race deserves be given unto him," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. In the grand hall of the royal court, Vidura stood before King Dhritarashtra, his words dripping with sincerity. "Your Majesty," he began, "you are revered by 3 worlds, a testament to your greatness. Your subjects look up to you with reverence, just as stones bask in the warmth of the sun and waves respect The vast expanse of the Asinus Vidura spoke. The king's eyes gleamed with pride. He had always been a just ruler, loved by all who lived under his rule. His venerable age only added to his wisdom, and his subjects knew that he would never act against the principles of the Scriptures or reason. Your Majesty Vidura continued, your virtues are like beacons, shining brightly for all to see. Your people are at peace, knowing that virtue resides in you permanently, but beneath the surface a subtle tension simmered. Vidura's words were laced with concern, and he pressed on, his voice taking on a more urgent tone. Your Majesty, I implore you, do not let your desire to give wealth to Kisava cloud your judgment. It is clear that you wish to use this gesture as leverage to separate Krishna from the Pandavas, but know this: no amount of wealth or attention can ever come between them. Vidura's words were like a gentle breeze on a summer day, but they carried a weighty message. He knew the king's true intentions, and he was determined to guide him towards the path of righteousness. Your Majesty, he said, his voice filled with conviction, Krishna is not one to be swayed by material gifts. His heart belongs to Arjuna, and together they are inseparably. Vidura spoke. The king's expression changed, a hint of unease creeping into his eyes. He knew that Vidura saw through his plan, and he was forced to confront the truth. Your Majesty, Vidura pressed on, Krishna comes bearing gifts, not for personal gain, but in the hopes of establishing peace between you and your sons. The Pandavas follow his counsel. I beg of you. In that moment King Dhritarashtra's eyes seemed to hold a glimmer of understanding. He was old and his children were young. He should act as a father towards them, guiding them with wisdom and compassion. Vidura's words had struck a chord within him, and for an instant it seemed as though the king might finally see the path ahead, but like a fleeting dream the moment passed, leaving behind only the faintest whisper of hope. The king's eyes clouded once more, and he nodded curtly, his mind made up. Vidura's words had been a gentle rain on parched earth, but they had not been enough to quench the thirst for peace that burned within him. In the grand halls of Hastinapur, Duryodhana, the eldest son of Dhritarashtra, stood firm in his conviction. His eyes burned with a fierce determination as he addressed his father, the grandsire of the Kuru's father. I have come to realize that Janardana, Krishna, is indeed devoted to the Pandavas. Duryodhana declared he cannot be separated from them, and it would be unwise to bestow any wealth upon him. Now Duryodhana's voice dripped with conviction as he continued, Krishna is a noble soul worthy of our reverence, but in this time of war we must not let our guard down. If we were to offer him worship, he might think us doing so out of fear, and that would bring shame upon our family. The grandsire of the Kuru's, Dhritarashtra, listened intently to his son's words. His eyes, filled with a deep understanding, reflected the weight of his son's conviction. However, he chose not to agree with Duryodhana's assessment. Worshipped or not worshipped, Janardana never becomes angry. Dhritarashtra said gently, but none can treat him with disrespect, for Kisava is not contemptible. The grandsire's words were laced with a deep wisdom and compassion as he continued to guide his son towards the path of peace. Duryodhana's face twisted in frustration as he listened to his father's words. His resolve hardened, and he declared, I can never live by sharing this prosperity with the Pandavas. I will imprison Janardana, who is their refuge, and when he comes here tomorrow morning, we will confine him. Duryodhana's voice rose in excitement as he outlined his plan to capture Krishna. The grandsire's eyes widened in alarm at his son's words, and he felt a deep pain within his heart. Dhritarashtra's expression turned stern as he addressed his son. Never say this again, my child, he said firmly. This is not the way of our ancestors. Hrishaksa comes here as an ambassador, and he is dear to us. He has done us no wrong. How can we think of imprisoning him? The grandsire's words were laced with a deep sadness, for he knew that his son was walking a path from which there would be no return. Bhishma, the wise and aged chief of the Bharata race, stood up from his seat. His eyes blazed with a fierce intensity as he addressed Duryodhana. This wicked son of yours has come to an hour of reckoning. Ishwad declared he chooses evil over good despite being entreated by his well-wishers. The old warrior's voice dripped with sorrow. And as the first rays of dawn broke through the sky, Krishna rose from his bed ready to begin another day. He went through his morning rituals, the time for quiet contemplation and preparation for the day ahead. With his duties fulfilled, he took leave of the Bharatas and set out towards the city of the Kurus. He made his way through Vrikasthala. The inhabitants bid him Farewell their faces, filled with a mix of sadness and admiration. Krishna's long arms and majestic presence commanded respect from all who saw him. The Dhritarashtra's, led by Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and others, dressed in their finest robes, emerged to greet him. The streets were soon filled with citizens, each eager to catch a glimpse of the revered Hrishaksa. Thousands of people poured out of their homes, some on chariots, others on foot, all clamoring to behold Krishna's divine presence. The city was transformed into a sea of adoration as he entered its gates. The principal streets were adorned with jewels and gems, a testament to the grandeur that Krishna inspired in those around him as he made his way through the throngs. No one remained indoors, all eager to see the Vasudeva who had brought them together. The citizens sang eulogies in his honor, their voices echoing through the streets. As they bowed down to the ground, Krishna's steeds, the swift and powerful, moved slowly through the dense crowd, as if reluctant to leave the sea of adoring faces behind. They finally reached the ash-colored palace of Dhritarashtra, where the blind king stood up along with his advisors, including Bhishma and Drona. Krishna entered the palace, his eyes shining like lotus flowers, and paid homage to Dhritarashtra and Bhishma according to established custom. He then greeted the other kings in attendance, acknowledging their seniority in years with due ceremony. He accepted a seat of beautiful craftsmanship, made of gold and set with jewels. The priests of Dhritarashtra offered Krishna a Kalani curds and water as a sign of hospitality, which he graciously accepted. The curious lot and joked with him, their faces filled with joy as they welcomed the illustrious grinder of foes into their midst. As the rites of hospitality came to an end, Krishna prepared to leave, but not before visiting the delightful abode of Vidura. Their Vidura, a wise and compassionate soul, worshipped Krishna with every auspicious offering at his disposal. "What use, O lotus-eyed one," he said, "in telling you of the joy I feel at this event of thine? For thou art the inner soul of all embodied creatures." Vidura's words were a testament to the deep affection and reverence that Krishna inspired in those who knew him. As they parted ways, the sun was setting over the kingdom, casting a warm orange glow over the landscape as Janardana, also known as Krishna, made his way to the residence of Pritha, his paternal aunt and the mother of the Pandavas. As he arrived at her doorstep, she flung open the doors and enveloped him in a tight hug, tears streaming down her face. Of Govinda, she sobbed, "It's been so long since I've seen you. My heart has been heavy with worry about my sons. They were always such good children, always revering their elders and being kind to one another." Pritha's voice cracked as she continued, "And now they are living in the forest far from me and their father. How could this have happened to them? They were taken from us so young, and now I fear for their safety." Krishna listened attentively as Pritha poured out her heart, his expression a mask of compassion and understanding. He took a seat, receiving the traditional hospitality before Pritha's sorrowful gaze turned to him once more. "Tell me, O Janardana," she implored, "how are my sons? Yudhishthira, with his golden complexion and virtuous soul, how does he fare in the wilderness? Damesna, that mighty warrior with arms like masses, is he still as strong and fierce as ever? And Arjuna, that great archer who shoots 500 arrows at a stretch, has he lost none of his skill or prowess?" Krishna's eyes seemed to cloud over for a moment, but then he spoke in a gentle tone. "Your sons are all well, Pritha. They have faced many challenges and hardships, but they remain steadfast and true to their duties. Yudhishthira leads them with wisdom and compassion, while Damesna continues to be the fierce warrior you know him to be. And Arjuna is still the greatest archer of our Timis." Pritha's tears began to dry. Her expression turned to one of curiosity. "And what about Sahadeva? He was always so gentle and kind, with a heart full of virtue. Tell me, O Krishna, how does he fare in this new life?" Krishna smiled, his eyes sparkling with warmth. "Sahadeva is still the same gentle soul you know him to be, Pritha. He remains devoted to his brothers and to serving them with humility and dedication." Pritha's gaze turned once more to the horizon, her thoughts now turning to her youngest sons, Nakila and Draupadi. "And what about my dear Nakila? Is he well embodied? And mine? I fear for him, as he was brought up in such luxury and comfort. And what of my daughter-in-law, Draupadi? How does she fare in the palace of Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana, a grandeur that rivaled the abode of Purandara himself? The illustrious Govinda also known as Sarai, entered with unobstructed ease, the hero of great fame Govinda was greeted by the assembly of kings, and Dhritarashtra's sons who rose from their seats to honor him with his characteristic humility. Govinda bowed to them according to their ages as he took his seat on a beautifully crafted golden throne adorned with intricate gold embroidery. Duryodhana offered Govinda a kal curds and water. He also placed at his disposal the entire kingdom's riches and grand palaces. The Kauravas and all the kings present worshipped Govinda, who shone like the sun in splendor. However, when Duryodhana invited Govinda to dine with him, the latter declined, citing the envoys should only accept hospitality after their mission is accomplished. This response left Duryodhana perplexed, as he had expected Govinda's gratitude for his hospitality. Dhritarashtra's son then attempted to reason with Govinda, questioning why he wouldn't accept their offerings despite being related and loved by Dhritarashtra. However, Govinda calmly explained that he would not abandon virtue due to personal gain or malice. He revealed that the Pandavas, Duryodhana's brothers, were virtuous individuals who deserved his love and protection. Govinda then criticized Duryodhana for harboring unreasonable hatred towards the Pandavas since birth. He emphasized that the virtuous Pandavas and himself shared a common soul, and those who loved them would also love him. Those who hated them would be considered vile. Govinda's words struck a chord within Duryodhana, but he refused to accept the truth. Disheartened by Govinda's refusal, Dhritarashtra's son watched as the illustrious hero departed from his palace. Undeterred, Govinda made his way to Vidurasabad, where he was warmly welcomed and entertained with great care. After Vidura had fed him, Govinda distributed food among a group of brahmanas, followed by a generous offering of wealth. He then shared the remaining meal with his attendants. As the evening drew to a close, Govinda dined on the remaining savories, fulfilling his needs and nourishing his body. The story of Govinda's visit to Duryodhana's palace serves as a testament to his unwavering commitment to virtue and compassion, even in the face of adversity.
The night had fallen over Hastinapura, and Kesava, the revered Lord Krishna, had finished his meal. Vidura, the wise and venerable advisor to King Dhritarashtra, approached him with a somber expression. Kesava, Vidura began, your arrival here has not been a well-judged one. The son of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, is a transgressor of both prophet and religion. He is wicked, wrathful, and insulting to others. Despite his desire for honors, his soul is possessed by desire and lust, and he foolishly regards himself as wise. Vidura's words dripped with sorrow and concern. He has abandoned all virtue and is in love with sin. He is a slave of his senses, ever obedient to the impulses of lust and avarice, and irresolute in every act that should be done. His vices are numerous, and although you may point out what is for his good, he will disregard it all, moved by pride and anger. Vidura's eyes seemed to bore into the darkness. As he spoke, Duryodhana has assembled a huge army and believes that Karna single-handed can vanquish their foes. He will never make peace, O slayer of Madhu, his sons, with Karna. Firmly believe that the Pandavas are incapable of even looking at Bhishma, Drona, and other heroes, not to speak of fighting against them. Vidura's voice grew more urgent as he continued. The foolish son of Dhritarashtra has arrived at the conclusion that his purposes are already achieved. He covets extensive empire on earth without rivals, and peace with him is unattainable. That which he has in his possession he regards as unalterably his. Vidura spoke, a sense of foreboding settled over the night air. Alas, the destruction on earth seems to be at hand for the sake of Duryodhana. For impelled by fate, the kings of the earth have assembled together, desirous of battling with the Pandavas. Vidura's expression turned grave as he looked at Kesava. All those kings are in enmity with you, and have been deprived of their possessions before this by you through fear of you. They have joined together with Karna and made an alliance with Dhritarashtra's sons, reckless of their very lives. All those warriors have united with Duryodhana and are filled with delight at the prospect of fighting the Pandavas. Vidura's words hung in the air like a challenge. O hero of desert, has raced it does not commend itself to me that you should enter into their midst. How will you repair into the midst of those numerous enemies of yours, of wicked souls, and seated together as...
The sun had just begun to set over the bustling city of Hastinapura. Casting a warm orange glow over the streets in the midst of this peaceful evening, a holy one arrived at the palace, seeking an audience with Vidura, the wise and venerable advisor to King Tretereshtra. As they sat together in the tranquil atmosphere of the palace gardens, the Holy One began to speak in words that were both gentle and profound. Vidura, you have spoken truthfully and wisely. He said, your words are like a soothing balm to the soul, bringing comfort and solace to those who listen. The Holy One paused for a moment, collecting his thoughts before continuing. I have come here today with a heavy heart, knowing the wickedness of Duryodhana's actions and the hostility of the Kshatriyas who support him, but I also know that there is still hope for peace. For if even a single person strives to do what is right, their merit will be great indeed. He gazed at Vidura with deep compassion in his eyes. Even if one intends to do wrong, but does not actually commit the act, they will not incur demerit. But I fear that this calamity, which threatens to engulf us, all has its roots in the actions of Duryodhana and Karna. They have led their fellow Kshatriyas astray, and now we are all paying the price. The Holy One's voice grew more urgent as he spoke. It is a friend's duty to try and save another from harm, even if it means seizing them by the hair and dissuading them from their foolish path. In this case, I implore Duryodhana and his counselors to listen to my words, which are consistent with virtue and profit, and to accept my counsel that can bring an end to this calamity. As he spoke, the Holy One's eyes seemed to burn with a fierce intensity, as if he was willing to do whatever it took to restore peace to the warring factions. I have come here not just for myself, he said, but for the good of Dhritarashtra's sons and the Pandavas, and indeed for all the Kshatriyas on earth. Vidura listened in rapt attention as the Holy One spoke, his words dripping with wisdom and compassion. He knew that this was no ordinary man, but a divine being who had come to bring peace and salvation to their troubled world. As the Holy One finished speaking, he lay down on his soft bed, exhausted from the weight of his mission. Vidura watched over him as he slept, knowing that the fate of their kingdom hung in the balance, and that this Holy One was the only one who could save them from the abyss of destruction that threatened to engulf them all. The night sky was ablaze with stars, as Vaisampayana and Krishna engaged in a lively conversation, their words like sparks flying from one another's lips. The air was alive with the scent of virtue, profit, and desire, their discussion weaving a tapestry of delightful phrases and syllables that hung suspended in Timaeus. The night wore on the sound of conchs and cymbals, pierced the stillness, announcing the dawn of a new day. Krishna, that Bolam on the Satwatas, rose from his bed, his movements as fluid as a lotus blooming in the morning dew. He cleansed himself with a refreshing bath, recited sacred mantras to purify his soul, and poured libations of clarified butter onto the sacrificial fire. As he donned his attire, Krishna's beauty shone like a beacon, illuminating the world around him. His eyes sparkled with intelligence, his presence commanding respect from all who beheld him. Duryodhana and Sakanai, those sworn enemies of the Yadavas, approached Krishna with deference, their words dripping with flattery as they invited him to join the assembly of kings. Krishna, ever the gracious host, greeted them warmly, his voice like a gentle breeze on a summer's day. He summoned a band of Brahmanas, bestowing upon them gifts of gold robes, and kind. His generosity is boundless. As the Essene, as he sat amidst the assembly, his Trevor Daruka arrived with a magnificent chariot, its rows of tinkling bells announcing Krishna's arrival like a triumphant fanfare. The streets were filled with the sweet sounds of music, cymbals clashing and conchs blowing, as thousands of soldiers, elephants, and cars followed in Krishna's wake. The citizens of Hastinapur poured out into the streets, their faces aglow with excitement, eager to catch a glimpse of the divine hero. As Krishna entered the Kuru court, his attendants blew their conchs and trumpets, filling the air with the deafening din that sent shivers down the spines of all who heard it. The assembly of kings trembled with delight, their eyes fixed on Krishna like thirsty travelers gazing upon an oasis in the desert. Bhishma, Drona, and Dhritarashtra rose from their seats as one, their movements a testament to the reverence they held for Krishna. A beautiful throne adorned with gold had been prepared for him, but Krishna refused it, choosing instead to sit on the ground amidst his friends and allies. As he took his seat, the rishis who had accompanied him from afar entered the court, their presence announced by a gentle rustling of leaves. Krishna invited them to join the assembly, urging Bhishma to offer them seats. and do courtesy. The Rishis accepted the Argas offered to them their souls at peace, as they sat amidst. The great sage Vesampada stood before King Dhritarashtra, his eyes filled with a deep sense of urgency. The king's court was silent, the only sound the rustling of the leaves and the gentle breeze outside. Krishna, the revered prince from the Yadu clan, rose to speak. His voice was like thunder on a rainy day, deep and resonant, filling the assembly. Hello, Bharata. Krishna began, his words dripping with sincerity. I have come to you today to bring peace between our two great kingdoms, the Kuras and the Pandavas. For too long we have been at odds, our armies poised for battle like a pair of mighty serpents ready to strike. But I implore you, dear king, do not let it come to that. Your family's honor, your people's well-being, all are at stake. Krishna's words echoed through the hall, and the assembly listened with rapt attention. He spoke of the Pandavas' innocence, their years of exile in the forest, and their plea for justice. They have been faithful to you, O king. Krishna said, his voice filled with conviction, and now they ask only that you acknowledge their rights as your sons and share the kingdom's wealth with them. Dhritarashtra listened intently, his expression a mask of concern. He knew the weight of Krishna's words and the danger that threatened to consume both kingdoms. His own sons, led by Duryodhana, had grown reckless in their ambition, disregarding the values that had long defined the Kura dynasty. Krishna continued, his voice growing more persuasive. O king, you have the power to stop this madness. You can set right your sons' misguided ways and bring peace back to our kingdoms. And I promise you, O Bharata, that if we work together, we can achieve great things. The Pandavas will stand by you as loyal police, and together we will conquer all who oppose us. The king's court was filled with an air of tension as the weight of Krishna's words settled upon the assembly. Dhritarashtra knew that he had a choice to make: follow his son's counsel or listen to the wise prince from Dwarka. His decision would shape not just his own destiny, but the fate of two great kingdoms. Krishna concluded his speech, his voice ringing out across the hall like a clarion call. O king, you have the power to choose peace over war, compassion over destruction. Choose wisely, for the future of our kingdoms hangs in the balance. In the assembly hall where the mighty warriors had gathered to hear the words of the wise Kesava, a profound silence fell upon them. Like a shroud, their hair stood on end as they listened in awe to the high-souled prince's speech. The kings among them thought to themselves that no one could dare reply to such a powerful orationist. If, sensing their unease, Jamadignai's son, addressing Duryodhana, spoke up, listen carefully, O king. He said, to my words, illustrated by an example, seek your own good if they recommend themselves to you. Began to tell the story of a king named Damadava, who had once ruled over the entire world with his mighty army. This proud monarch would rise every morning and boast about his prowess in battle, asking the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas gathered before him if there was anyone equal or superior to him. The wise men among them, conversant with the Vedas and endued with high souls, counsel the king repeatedly to curb his pride. But Damadava continued to boast, thinking himself invincible. Some Brahmanas, enraged by his arrogance, told him that there were two persons who were foremost of all men and always victorious in battle: Nara and Narayana. The proud king asked where these two heroes could be found, but the Brahmanas replied that they had taken their births as ascetics in a hidden region of the mountains of Gandhamadana. Damadava's curiosity got the better of him, and he mustered his army to march towards the mountainous. He arrived at the rugged and frightful peaks. He searched for Nara and Narayana, finally coming upon them concealed within the woods. The two rishis were emaciated with hunger and thirst, their veins swollen and visible, but they received the king hospitably, offering him fruits, roots, and the Sita king, still boastful, told them of his conquests and asked for battle. Nara and Narayana replied that wrath and covetousness had no place in their retreat, and that there were no weapons or unrighteousness to be found there. They advised the king to seek battle elsewhere among the many Kshatriyas on earth, but Damadava was insistent, and Nara took up a handful of grass blades, saying, desirous of battle as thou art, come, O Kshatriya, and fight. Take up all the arms and array the troops. I will curb the eagerness for battle hereafter. The king, eager to prove his prowess, covered all sides with a shower of arrows, but Nara, using the grass blades as his weapon, baffled all those terrible shafts. The invincible Rishi then led off towards In the assembly of the Kuras, Rishikin was stood before Duryodhana, his words echoing through the halls. The illustrious sage had listened to Germania's counsel and now imparted his own wisdom to the Kaurava. Prince Duryodhana. Kanwa began the grandsire of the universe. Brahma is eternal and indestructible. His essence pervades all existence. The Rish is Nara, and Narayana embody. This same unyielding spirit among the sons of Aditya Vishnu stands apart. He alone is eternal, unconquerable, and indestructible, the Lord of all, and the possessor of divine attributes. As Kanwa spoke, his words wove the tapestry of timelessness. The sun and moon, earth, and water, wind, and fire, planets, and stars, all are subject to destruction. They come into being, flourish, and then succumb to the inevitable cycle of creation and annihilation. Even kings with their mighty thrones and grandeur are but fleeting figures on the stage of life. Their prosperity is short-lived, and they ultimately face destruction, reborn anew to reap the consequences of their deeds. Skin was gaze locked on to Duryodhana. His words piercing the prince's armor of pride. It would be wise, O Sayodhana, to seek peace with Yudhishthira. The Pandavas and Kauravas should rule this earth together, for in unity lies strength. Do not rely solely on physical prowess, for it is but a fleeting illusion. True power lies in the hearts of those who possess wisdom and virtues. Kanwa's tale unfolded. He wove an ancient story into his narrative. In the realm of the gods, Metalai, the charioteer of Indra, was beset by worry. His daughter Ganexia, a celestial beauty with loveliness and symmetry to rival the stars, had reached marriageable age. Metalai's mind whirled with anxiety as he pondered the perils of marrying his daughter into respectable families. The danger of compromising honor and reputation hung like a specter with his wife Sattharma. By his side, Metalai held counsel through the night. Together they scoured the realms of gods and men, searching for a worthy suitor. Yet none seemed suitable, not even among the Nagas. In desperation, Metalai turned to the nether regions, seeking a husband worthy of his daughter's celestial beauty. As Kanwa finished his tale, Duryodhana listened intently, his thoughts reflected in the sage's words. The eternal cycle of creation and destruction, the transience of human strength, and the importance of unity. The assembly fell silent, awaiting the Kaurava prince's response to Rishi Kanwa's counsel. As Metalai, the charioteer of the gods, made his way through the realms of the divine, he was met by the wise and venerable Rishi Narada. The sage's eyes twinkled with curiosity as he beheld Metalai's journey, and he asked, "Whither dost thou go, dear charioteer? Is it on a mission of your own, or at the behest of Satyr, that you undertake this journey?" Metalai explained his purpose to Narada, who listened intently before saying, "We shall proceed together. I have come to pay my respects to Varuna, the Lord of the Waters, and I shall share with you all that I know." As they walked, Narada began to tell Metalai about the wonders of the Naga world. "Behold, dear charioteer," he said, "the dominions of Varuna are a place of great beauty and riches. His son Pushkara is a wise and virtuous young man, loved by his father for his noble heart and radiant eyes like lotus leaves." Narada's words painted vivid pictures in Metalai's mind. As they approached the abode of Varunas, they entered the golden palace. Metalai was amazed by its grandeur. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wine called Varunai, which had been obtained from this very place and used by the gods to acquire their divine powers. Narada pointed out the blazing weapons that adorned the walls, saying these were once wielded by the deities, but they have been taken as spoils of war by the gods. Metalai's eyes widened as he beheld the discus of Vishnu surrounded by a halo of splendor, and the naughty ball created for the destruction of the world. Narada continued to guide Metalai through the wonders of Varuna's realm. "Behold, dear charioteer," he said, "the fire of blazing flames that burns within the lake, and the umbrella of the Lord of the Waters, which showers refreshing rain like the clouds." As they walked, Narada pointed out the various marvels of the Naga world, each one more astonishing than the last. But as the sun began to set, he said, "Our business will suffer. If we tarry too long here, we must leave this region soonest." They prepared to depart. Narada turned to Metalai and said, "You have seen but a small part of the wonders that lie within these realms. There are innumerable marvels waiting to be discovered. But our time is short." With those words, the two travelers bid farewell to Varuna's realm and continued on their journey, carrying with them memories of the incredible sights they had beheld. As Narada continued his tale, he led Metalai's chariot through the winding waters. that flowed into the heart of the nega world. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy, and the sound of chanting could be heard in the distance. "We are approaching Patal and Narada," announced his voice, filled with reverence. "This is a place of great significance, where the gods themselves once gathered to quench their thirst for immortality." As they emerged from the water, Matalaya's eyes widened at the sight before them. The city of Petalim shone like a beacon, its buildings and temples gleaming with an ethereal light at its center. A great fire blazed, fueled by the waters that surrounded it. This was no ordinary flame, for it was bound to the will of the celestial forces, held fast by their power. Narada guided Matalaya's chariot through the city streets, pointing out various wonders along the way. They passed by creatures that dwelled in the water, their forms shifting and falling like the currents themselves. These beings were said to be nourished by the moon's rays, which brought them back to life each night after they had fallen victim to the sun's deadly touch. As they journeyed deeper into Petalim, Narada spoke of the gods who had once rested here, their strength and vitality renewed by the waters. He told of the great Lord Mahadeva, who had practiced austerities in this very place for the benefit of all creatures. The air was heavy with the scent of incense and the sound of chanting, as if the very fabric of reality was being woven. Matalaya's eyes scanned the city, searching for a worthy bridegroom to accept his daughter's hand, but Narada seemed unconcerned, leading them instead to a great egg that floated in the waters. This enigmatic object was said to be ageless, its nature and purpose unknown even to the gods themselves. It was rumored that when the end of the world came, this egg would burst forth with a mighty fire, consuming all in its path. As they stood before the egg, Matalaya's expression turned skeptical. "No one here seems illegible," he said, his voice tinged with disappointment. Narada nodded sympathetically, and together they turned to leave Petalim behind, their journey continuing into the unknown. In the vast and wondrous city of Hiranyakura, a metropolis renowned for its grandeur and mystical, Narada stood before Matalaya, his words dripping with awe and reverence. "Behold, O Matalaya, he began this magnificent city built by the divine artificer Maya with the blessings of the ancient Danavas, who had obtained boons from Brahman in days of yore." As they walked through the city's streets, Narada pointed out the various regions, each one a testament to the ingenuity and craftsmanship of its creators. The air was alive with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality had been woven into a tapestry of illusions. "Here dwell the Kalakenjas, azures born from Vishnu's own essence," Narada explained, "and the Yetadanas Rakshasas, who sprang from the feet of Brahman. They are beings of unyielding mercy, their teeth sharp as knives, their speed and prowess rivaling that of the wind itself." As they strolled through the city's grand boulevards, Matalaya marveled at the opulent mansions, made of silver and gold, adorned with precious stones and gemstones that sparkled like stars in the night sky. The palaces seemed to defy description, their beauty so breathtaking that it was as if they had been crafted from the very essence of the gems themselves. The radiance of the Oxfatica and Vajrasura gemstones illuminated the structures, casting a warm golden glow over the surroundings. "And behold, O Matalaya," Narada said, his voice filled with excitement, "these hills that resemble clouds, these fountains of water, and those trees that move of their own with gilding fruits and flowers at our very command." It was as if they had entered a realm beyond the mortal world, where the laws of nature were but a distant memory. As Narada spoke of the city's wonders, his eyes gleaming with an inner light, Matalaya's expression grew increasingly troubled. He knew that the gods and Danavas were sworn enemies, locked in an eternal struggle for power and dominance. "A celestial Rishi," he said, finally, his voice firm but laced with a hint of reluctance, "it behooves me not to do anything that may be disagreeable to the dwellers of heaven. I fear that our presence here would only serve to fan the flames of discord between our kind." Narada's face fell, his words dripping with disappointment. "As regards myself," he said, his voice tinged with a hint of sadness, "I know my heart is ever set on fomenting quarrels. But I had hoped that in this place we might find a respite from the conflicts of the world above." Matalaya's words had struck a chord within. The sun beat down upon the land as Narada, a wise and venerable sage, stood beside his chariot, gazing out at the vast expanse of the bird kingdom. He turned to Matalaya's trusted friend and charioteer and began to speak in hushed tones. "This region here, Matalaya," Narada said, "is a land of wonders, where birds of every kind reign supreme. Their feathers shine like jewels in the sunlight, and their songs echo through the skies. They are a proud and noble people descended from the 6 sons of Garuda, Samuka Sunaman, Suntra, Sovarkas Shoench, and the majestic Sobalas. Narada spoke, his eyes sparkled with excitement, and Matalai leaned in closer to listen. These birds, Narada continued, are a force to be reckoned with. They are fierce warriors, unmatched in their prowess and strength. Their journeys are long and arduous, but they never tire, for they are driven by a fierce determination to survive. And further, Narada's words painted a vivid picture of the bird kingdom, where creatures like Savarnachud, Nagis, and Dharana, and Chanatandika ruled with might and majesty. These birds were not only skilled hunters, but also devoted worshippers of Vishnu, whose favor they enjoyed in abundance. Vishnu dwells within their hearts, Narada said, his voice filled with reverence, and his